Now let us discuss a very important aspect of our data structure and algorithm, which is known as analysis of running time. Our theme for data structure, design and implementing of data structure, we will always talk about how effectively these data structure support different operations. This will let us decide what data structure is right for a specific task, because for every task there is certain requirement, and for that a data structure, some or the other, may be useful. What we intend to do is to find good and bad about a specific data structure, right? So when analyzing this running time of a certain operation, there are various factors which are there. First is how fast is the machine. Maybe your algorithm is quite fast, but it will not run faster in a slow machine. What other processes are running, and just measurement alone will not complete the story. While we measure this running time empirically for bunch of input, which is important, it must be complemented with our theoretical analysis also. So what running time we are talking about? What exactly when we mean when we are talking about a running time of an algorithm, such as counting, but on what machines? Which input? If you have algorithm that runs on array, for example, its running time will depend on what's in the array, and at least on how big they are. These two are simple factors. So what really we are trying to do is that we have a function t that is mapping to, say, some input I, a function t with certain input I to the time it takes the algorithm, which we will denote by ti. So this time with certain input, and we just call it ti, and this will correspond to the time it takes to complete this algorithm. And the complete description of this algorithm or running time of this algorithm would be, or simply list this for all inputs. This will be a running time. But there is a problem. There may be infinitely many such i's inputs. It can be small, it can be very large, finite numbers. There has to be some pattern. This will be neither feasible nor beneficial, because this is not going to work. Let me summarize all this. The standard way is to group input size by, or inputs together by a size. So most input have a size which you can measure, such as bytes in a file or the number of entries in the array. You can count that. Then we can write in for some set of input of size n, right? This can be in for some input n. Now we would like to define tn to somehow summarize this ti for all inputs I which belongs to in, n inputs in, ti the time, so we call it as tn, which for summarizing this ti, that is the time, and the input can be which belongs to some in. Then we can find out how this running time is growing as we are increasing, or as the inputs are getting larger. Now for large scale scenarios, this can be our solution. How should we combine the running times into one tn? This is an important question. This can be worst case, best case, or average case. This tn can be best case, worst case, and average case. What will be the best case? This best case will be minimum of this I which belongs to in, ti. Minimum of ti is the best case. But best case does not usually, those people who are dealing with data structure and algorithm, they will never talk about best case. Why? Imagine promising a prospective customer that if only he feeds your program with one input it was optimized for, it will run fast efficient. You cannot do that because you cannot specify that okay, this input you can give, then my algorithm is going to work fine. But this is not the selling point. So let us not talk about best case, but we have this average case, which is far meaningful than the this previous one, which is called the best case. We will define it as T average of n will be equal to 1 by in. You already know what is this in. Sigma I belongs to in. This I Ti means summation of all times, running times, summation. This sigma means summation, and we divide it by in, mod of in. And then if you talk about average case, it may also have some downsides. For example, just imagine you are writing a software for self-driving car, which needs to react if someone comes or something comes in front. Let us assume that 99% of the time the software reacts 0.01%. But 1% of the time it takes 30 seconds. 99% time 0.01 second, 1% 30 seconds. On average, it takes much less than half a second on an average. But you'd like your car to crash 1% of the time when someone brakes in front of you. So what's really going on is that when you analyze this average case, what you assume is that each input is equally likely and that the average is the right measure for you. These assumptions are sometimes true, but if you want to make them, you should be absolutely sure that they are right, but it is not going to work like that. So there is another reason against average case analysis. When we have seen average case, there is another point. It's usually more technically difficult to carry out, though it could be a lot of for mathematics people it will be a great fun. So by now on we will talk about worst case. The worst case running time, which is defined as T worst, is equal to maximum of I belong to in Ti. Because it is the only one we really care about, we will usually just write Tn for brevity. We will not write all this, and we'll see and we'll talk that okay, this is our worst case. This is worst case scenario. When you do a worst case analysis, you can confidently promise your clients that your code never takes more than this much amount of time. That is the guarantee you are providing him. Now comes the big O notation, big O. Now, worst case we have talked about how to report this worst case running times. You cannot say this is Tn. There has to be some factors like which machine that can make a difference. As some computers are quicker than another, as I discussed earlier. But in the end, it's not the property of an algorithm or a data structure. So maybe we shouldn't measure performance in seconds like for machines. We will count it based on the operation that it is performing. But what an operation can be? Different processors differ in whether they have a simple operation, for example, RISC, for which you build up complex ones or implement many complex operations. Just for instance, if AI++ is one operation, technically we have to read this value I, then use it to read the value AI, and then you need to increment it and then write it back to its memory position. So is this one operation or four operation? Also, you have to be dependent on the memory hierarchies. So this kind of fine-grained analysis is somewhat tedious, and also it does not inform you about whether a data structure is actually good. So in order not to waste time on these kind of details, all theoretical analysis running times of data structure and algorithm are carried out using big O notation. Big O notation. Big O is not tied to running in a time of algorithms. you can also apply it to functions as well, not only for running time. So that is why big O is what scientists have been using. And let us have some refresher about big O. What is big O? When we say that a function that is Tn, this is order of some Fn. We say that this is order. This order is only the big O notation. If this function is order of Fn, we mean that this Tn should be less than or equal to Cfn. C can be any constant, but it has to be less than Fn. Say it is n square. Fn is n square. So the big O of Tn should be order of n square for all n. T can be never bigger than f times a constant. This can be a constant. Then we say T is omega. This is also an option. We say that Tn is greater than or equal to C dash Gn, if some Gn function is there. So if this is our function, order of n says about the upper bound and omega says about the, this is the upper bound and this is the lower bound. So it lies between this. This is order of, this is omega, this is order big O, and this is omega, lower bound. Then we come to this theta. What is this? This is between your big O and omega. This is between your, that is why we call it as theta. And there are various constant functions. These two definitions are similar whenever Tn is guaranteed to always be positive, but there will be some subtle distinction if we consider equation that could be 0, which we will not talk about here. So big O allows us to be sloppy in a precise sense. That is, we know what we are ignoring. That is, we are ignoring constant factors and the lower order terms, and what we are keeping, that the growth of T as a function of n, the highest power or highest time taking function we are taking. This latter is the important part, because we want to know how well our data structure or algorithm performs as the size, that is the number of items stored in the data structure, as they grow large or larger. That's why we have this big O notation. Whenever you are analyzing any kind of this DSA, I'll call DSA for algorithm and data structure. So whenever we are trying to analyze any kind of DSA, we recommend that you don't say that something takes n steps, but instead you can say it some theta n or omega n steps. This makes clear that you understand that step is an amorphous concept and not very scientific concept, and we are actually focusing on the big picture. Coming to obtaining upper and lower bound, how we are going to do that? Now if you have an algorithm and you want to figure out of the form Tn, because we are interested in this Tn, that you can actually understand. So what makes you to choose the best algorithm? What you need to prove? This question is very important. But let us first ask ourselves why we care about lower bounds and not just upper bound on running time. Why only we are interested in lower bound? Let us have an example. We have two examples for the similar problem. For one algorithm, we have shown that Tn lies between n and n square, n and n to the power 4, n and n to the power 4. And the other one, we have shown that it is between n square and n cube, order of n cube. That is, actually, this is T1, that is order of n to the power 4. T1n, this omega n, and T2n is theta n cube. The lowest one is n, that is lower bound. Higher bound, n to the power 4, and the omega means this one T2, for this two T2, the higher one is big O of n cube, and for this T2 this is omega of n square, this is theta of n cube, omega of n square. This is the upper bound for T2, this is the lower bound, this is the upper bound for T1 and lower bound is theta, this omega n. Now tell me which algorithm is better. For both implementation, there are just way too wide range of possibilities, which include various scenarios in which the first is better and ones where the second is better. That is why we would like our upper and lower bound to match, so that we can compare them. We cannot compare such kind of. Most of you, I'm sure, you might be thinking which one is the better, but what I want to emphasize is that always, or there are these kind of functions, they can only be matched if they have some sort of similarity to match. So ideally you would like this to match upper and lower bound, making a comparison which is possible. That's the case where we get this Tn is equal to theta of Fn for some function f that we can understand. So it is always possible to get matching bounds. Yes, we can get that. And for each function Tn, the worst case running time of our algorithm, there is a correct answer. And so f such that the running time is theta Fn. Sometimes determining this f can become very complex. That is why we have this upper and lower bounds that do not match. Our first try to determine this Tn would be like this. For each n, just figure out worst case input I of that size and then count in big O notation the number of steps on this input I. This would give us the running time. And the problem with that approach is that figuring out this actual worst case can be quite difficult or even impossible, since it may depend on a lot of things which I actually discussed. So we usually analyze upper and lower bound using somewhat different approaches. To get upper bound of order of Fn, we have to show that for every input I which belongs to In, the running time is at most order of Fn. And that way we do this to take arbitrary input I and going through this code counting or upper bounding the number of operations. And along this path, to keep this or things simple to ourselves, we drop constant factors, terms that grow less faster than the dominant term. So we always take this dominant term. This way we now arrive at upper bound of big O notation, that is for the worst case running time. People generally seem to be mystified about using this big omega notation with worst case time. After all, this big omega gives a lower bound, so the natural assumption is that this must involve proving that the running time is always least some function Tn. But this is not like that. Right? We need to see the upper bound. There may be some confusion also, because we substituted this running time for the worst case running time. That is, we are trying to prove upper and lower bound on the running time. And suppose that instead of running time, we looked at people height, and worst case means tallest. Please understand this example. That suppose that instead of we forget about running time, we talk about people height. Worst case means tallest. Then to prove that the worst case is large, we would have to find at least one student who is very tall, and not prove that all people are. So when we try to prove a lower bound on the worst case running time, it is sufficient to show that there is one case of size n on which this algorithm takes this much step. So we recommend that you can go through all this, because it may be confusing at the first go, but it will be clear as you study more. So the input on which we get a lower bound like this could be the worst case, which would be a good choice. But since we don't necessarily know the actual worst case, it's sufficient to have a pretty bad input which takes almost as much time as the worst case, and this finding of this pretty bad input is much easier to do than to finding the actual worst case. So when we have a data structure, we want to get upper and lower bound both. And if we succeed in showing that Tn is equal to order of Fn and Tn is equal to omega of Fn, we have to show that Tn equal to theta of Fn, which lies between these two. And to we know essentially everything there is to know about the time of algorithm or data structure. For we ignore these constant factors, and we know already that on the worst case input of size n, the function will take constant Fn steps. And if we know that Tn equal to order of Fn and Tn equal to this omega of Gn, then but this F and G are not similar, there are some alternatives. Our Beaver analysis was not cautious sufficient, and the task is actually performed in order of Gn steps. In this case, the algorithm may be better than we first thought. And our big omega analysis are not cautious sufficient, and there are inputs on which it does takes this omega Fn steps. The algorithm may be worse than we first thought, something in between. For that, you can have this theta in between. Let us summarize. You might feel that the dose is high today, but when you say that an algorithm worst case running time is order of n, you actually say that it can never take more than this c into Fn steps. And when you say this omega, you say that there are some cases when it is as bad as c dash Gn. And one question will be, could it be possible that big omega bound is larger than big O notation or big O bound? Can an algorithm have a running time of order n square and omega n cube? Is it possible? It can never be possible, as this would mean that it takes at most n square and at least n cube steps in some cases, which is not possible. So this was a recapitulation of our running time. Hope you got the idea. Even if you understand 5%, it would be good. Thank you so much.